This is Plant-Based Briefing, Carbohydrates, Simple, Complex, Misunderstood, Part 1, by the Center for Nutrition Studies at nutritionstudies.org. And I'm Marian Erickson, host of this plant-based podcast where I curate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living, get permission, and narrate them to you here in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And today's episode would be longer than that, so it's a two-parter. I'll read part 1 today and then tune back in tomorrow for the second half. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Carbohydrates, Simple, Complex, Misunderstood, Part 1, from the Center for Nutrition Studies at nutritionstudies.org. Which is the greater threat to our understanding and application of nutrition, reductionism or simplistic thinking? The reductionist, seeking to understand the whole by isolating and mastering its constituents, the nutrients and nutrient-like substances in food, the complex biological pathways involved in digestion, individual chemical reactions, and more, serves a valuable role. However, unchecked, reductionism can mislead. The reductionist researcher might spend a lifetime investigating a single nutrient's effects on a single process related to a single disease outcome, but this does not reflect how nutrition works in our lives. We consume countless nutrients and nutrient-like substances all the time, and they constantly interact with each other to affect countless health and disease outcomes. Try to disentangle this web and focus on a single interaction might yield interesting findings and be useful in a limited sense, but only in a limited sense. What's needed is a concurrent focus on the bigger picture. What's needed is balance. Learn about reductionism and its counterbalance, holism, in the following articles linked below. Whole, Rethinking the Science of Nutrition. Scientific Reductionism Detracts from Whole Food Plant-Based Message. Diminishing Returns in the Pursuit of a Cure for Cancer. Why Breadth is Important, a selection from Dr. T Colin Campbell's The Future of Nutrition, and Hullabaloo, a state of confused noise surrounding meat consumption. At the other end of the spectrum, many are guilty of neglecting, if not completely erasing, nutrition's nuances. For examples of this neglect, which will be the greater focus of this article, we need only look at the discourse surrounding the macronutrients fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Phrases and headlines like "eat butter," famously featured on the cover of Time, or the simplistic distinction between good fats versus bad fats, questions like "where do you get your protein?" fad diets that vilify carbs. All of these illustrate how rudimentary much of the thinking about nutrition has become. Squeezed between these two extremes are epidemic levels of nutrition miscomprehension and a thriving market for bad actors to rack up record profits. The market for weight loss, health, and nutrition products was worth more than $1 trillion in 2023. Revenue growth in the dietary supplements industry specifically has skyrocketed in recent decades, from $4 billion in 1994 to $70 billion today. And that growth is likely to accelerate as chronic health conditions abound and the FDA's regulation of supplements is curtailed even more than in past years. Learn about how regulatory policies affecting the supplement industry favor profit and power linked here. Carbohydrates provide a great case for study for how useless much of the nutrition discourse has become. As the target of numerous popular diets, carbohydrates are always a hot topic. You know the diets we're talking about, whether it's Atkins, paleo, or more recently and extremely the carnivore diet. The tradition of high-fat diets labeling carbohydrates as dangerous is long and rich. Lost in this noise, almost as if by design, is a basic understanding of carbohydrates, the functions they serve, and the many factors determining their health effects. What are carbohydrates? Carbohydrates fuel the body. They can be broken down into roughly 3 categories: fiber, starches, and sugars. Complex carbohydrates are fiber and starches, and simple carbohydrates are sugars. It might be tempting to think of complex versus simple carbohydrates as good or bad, respectively, but that supposed dichotomy does a disservice to our understanding of the subject because, 1, each category contains multiple types, for example, insoluble versus soluble fiber, rapidly digestible versus resistant starch, glucose versus fructose, and more. 2, they are structurally intertwined in the whole food context. For example, starches are composed of glucose. And consequently, 3, their effects depend on the total food package. In the minds of many people, carbs means primarily pasta and bread. This ignores the many differences between various types of pasta and bread. It also ignores the countless other carbohydrate-rich foods, some of which are healthy and some of which are not. To take this oversimplification to its most extreme end, some individuals are so eager to avoid carbs that they will pay $10 for a package of paleo wraps, while neglecting many of the richest nutrient sources. You just listened to Carbohydrates, Simple, Complex, Misunderstood, Part 1 from the Center for Nutrition Studies at nutritionstudies.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. Tune in tomorrow for the second half of this episode, where you'll learn about refined grains versus whole grains, other carb-heavy foods, fruit, and sugary fruits in particular, and how the simplistic view of carbohydrates is fueling the supplement industry as well. So tune in tomorrow for that, and please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.